All right, guys, so today we're going to be talking about why is it that in order for women to fall in love, you have to engage her emotions and how to do it, most importantly. So I'm going to be giving you guys different strategies on how to engage women's emotions according to psychology. All right? Listen up, okay? Unfortunately, the thought, the logical understanding that you and this person are a great match is not enough to make somebody fall in love with you. I've been with people who I thought weren't good, who I knew were on point, like on paper, perfect match. The looks apartment, exactly how I like it. But for some reason, when I think of them, there isn't a beautiful hazy image of them, you know, with fucking angels in the background, and they're looking at you, and the camera of your mind is slowly zooming in on their face as they look at you like that. You know, and everything is fuzzy except their eyes. You could have everything and not feel that for that person, and it could be very frustrating because you know that they're perfect for you, but for some reason you don't like them, and so the other person also sees the same thing in us. And the reason why that is because we have not engaged their emotion. There are two ways that this happens. There is the natural way, where you meet someone and your bodies, literally your bodies, are perfect matches. Biologically, neurochemistry, you know, everything. It's a perfect match, right? But then there is where it happens because of circumstance, and you could perhaps have some influence. For example, a lot of people who go to war and fight in a dangerous situation, they end up becoming really good friends. And studies show that whenever you go through a traumatic event with somebody else, you guys become trauma bonded, right? That's an example of maybe you would never have been friends, but because you guys went through this together, all of a sudden a relationship that would have never have happened naturally, now it's happening, right? So we're gonna be talking about how you could do that without being manipulative and without going straight to hell, all right? And if you guys want to learn about these things, you guys can purchase I have a bunch of courses that I talk about this. In particular, you guys can purchase the Mindful Attraction University. It's a bundle of all of my courses where I teach you these strategies. I teach you the strategies on how to make somebody fall in love, how to find the right person, how to prevent the other person from falling out of love, which is what usually happens a lot of the times. I have a course on assertiveness. I have a course for single people, for people in relationships. You could order it right now by clicking on the description down below where it says order the bundle, and I'll see you guys inside. It's honestly all of my courses that I've ever made for you guys in one place. Okay, all right, let's begin. So look, let's talk about what engages emotions. Well, we have two parts. We have one part of our brain which is called the reticular activating system. The reticular activating system, I believe, is in the amygdala, and that's what is always looking out for threats, particularly threats to our survival, but also is also looking out for things that will promote our survival. That means food, the opposite sex, right, or positive connections, alliances. And then in the negative side, we look for threats. The dark shadow over there that's slowly walking up to you, right? The friendly politician who looks too good to be true. The snake that is rattling. All of that. Our brain are always scanning for what's a threat and what's not a threat. And so when the brain notices that something's threatening it in the environment, it will activate the reticular activating system and release emotions, release hormones, your dopamine, in order to help you remember and repeat the behavior that led to you finding that positive thing. And then cortisol to remind you and ingrain in you everything that led to that event that could threaten your life, right? That part of your brain enhances memories that led to positive things and also enhances the memory that led to the negative thing. So you'll know exactly where your ass got mugged. But as a guy, also, you'll know exactly where you met a girl that like for example, like I once met a girl at the library. You know, she became my girl. When I became single, I kept going back to that fucking library, right? Because your brain will ingrain the memory of those things. So as we can see, those are the two factors that causes our brains to become engaged in a situation where you might be bored in your room, but if all of a sudden the roof collapsed, all of a sudden your emotions engage, you pay more attention, and all of a sudden you're just more focused. Your adrenaline rushes to your body. So anything that provides value, and anything that will threaten what you already have will engage your emotions. So, how do you do that? Well, the first thing is novelty and surprise. Novelty and surprise engages emotions. That means new things will engage your emotions a lot more than older things, in every sense of the way. And also, surprise, right? Whenever somebody surprises you, without knowing, release emotions without even thinking, right? You just feel new emotions when something surprising happens. You have no control over that. So when it comes to people, unpredictability creates this similar effect. You have no control over people who are unpredictable, and as a result, you are more emotionally engaged in people who are unpredictable, especially people who are not that into you. People who are not that into you naturally will be unpredictable, because when they like you, their behavior is in one direction towards you. When they don't like you, you tend to notice that their behavior goes in your direction, but maybe goes in this direction, and then back in your direction, and you can't predict it. And that unpredictable aspect threatens your self-esteem, because your brain is always trying to understand, always trying to predict things. And the reason why this is the behavior of people who don't like you is because when somebody is in love, you gotta understand the feeling of love is like being on crack, right? And you are their drug. Every time they want to get in contact with you, touch you, see you, connect with you, it's like a hit of crack, right? What's one thing about crackheads that's consistent? Doing crack. A real crackhead doesn't say one day, you know what? I forgot to do crack. Oh, you know what? I'm too busy to do crack. No, it's geared in one direction. But when somebody is healthy, have a healthy state of mind, you don't know when they're gonna do crack. When somebody's not addicted to a drug, the time when they do that drug is not predictable, right? Because they're not addicted to it. So that drug, which is you, is like, what the fuck? This person doesn't like me? Everyone likes me. I'm crack, right? But once they start falling in love with you, just like any addict, you can start to predict their behavior. You know exactly where they're gonna be. You know exactly what they're gonna do. So that's why people who are not consistent, I'm like, you are one weird crackhead, because that's not how people who are in love work. That's not how somebody who loves you work. They're not inconsistent. They are consistent to the bone, because this is an emotional experience, and emotions have reactions that are consistent, so that it doesn't use a lot of brain energy. So the brain of the person who is perceiving someone to be unpredictable will think of that person more. And eventually, if you do this long enough, they may end up falling in love with you. But what kind of unpredictability am I talking about? Hot and cold. One day you're hot, the next day you're cold. One day you're 1 week you're texting consistently, and the next week you're not. You send them you send them 5 text messages fast, and then the 6th one, it takes a whole day to respond. Well, the problem is that's the behavior of somebody that just doesn't like you. The brain will not see that. And the brain will not let you entertain the fact that they don't like you, because it hurts your self-esteem. So what the brain will do then, it'll try to find other reasons why this person is being unpredictable. And you end up falling in love with them because you're trying to understand them. The unpredictable aspect. That's one thing. Novelty and surprise. And the novelty is that you don't always behave the same. For example, one girl in particular, one day she would be very affectionate towards me, and then the next day she'll come to my place, but she wouldn't be physical, not like sex, but like she wouldn't want to be touched for no apparent reason. And I'm like, what the fuck? That's weird. I'm cozy, motherfucker. What the hell's your problem, right? But it made me self-reflect, and it made me say, what the hell's going on? Why is she doing this? And this causes somebody, especially if you're maybe sad or maybe depressed or maybe have low self-esteem, this will make somebody fall in love with you, you know? The next thing is sense of control. So remember, unpredictability. And this is just something that you guys can do. You don't have to be evil with it. You don't have to go to hell by doing this. You could just be unpredictable by having a life. Sometimes you don't want to see the person, right? You like them, but you just don't want to see them. Maybe you've been around too many people that day and you want to be alone. You could tell them that. But a lot of the times when we like them, we don't want to tell them that because it hurts their feelings. And as you can see, whenever you cancel something, it hurts their feelings. Whenever you pull away, it hurts them. And the reason why is because they were expecting you to behave a certain way. And then you acted the opposite. And now they feel like they can't predict you. Which means it also feels like they can't control you. They're trying to, because we as humans are always trying to put the pieces together. And when we feel like everything's coming together, but then you notice there's one piece that doesn't add up, it re-engages your emotions. And depending on your self-esteem level, you may fall in love with them. And this is why you have to be careful with people who are inconsistent, with people who you can't predict. When you can't predict someone, that's a red flag. Let me put this right. When you can't predict whether or not they're actually going to see you on the date that night, that's a red flag. You know what I'm saying? So that's one thing. Next thing. Sense of control and then not having the control. Right? This goes down to also predictability, where you're consistently texting them, consistently there, and all of a sudden, you're busy. All of a sudden, this week I'm really heavy with work and I can't see you. They felt like they could get you to see them any moment in time. Hey, you respond. You call. You pick up soon. They ask you for a date for next week. You're always there. And now all of a sudden you're busy. The way the brain will interpret that is the fact that now I can't control you. And we all think that with every one of our partners, because we sort of do have some control over them. And there's nothing wrong with that because they gave it to us and we're being responsible with it. But there is a certain high that the control that our lovers give has. And that high, when we don't have it, makes us mad, makes us angry, makes us anxious. And showing people that they cannot control you, showing people that I do love you, but I am willing to walk away if you fuck with me, makes them nervous. And it engages their emotions to try to control you or tame you. The wild woman, the wild man. The man that can't commit, the woman that can't commit, people see that as a challenge because they can't control you. But the key is to give them some sense of control so that they know that you have the ability to let somebody control you to some degree. Submission under condition, I love you and you are able to hurt me more than anybody, but also I'm able to deal with the pain and walk away from you if you're being toxic enough. You let them know that you have this intense love for them, but also that you're also willing to cut your nose to spite your face. People, their love for you will increase, and also their respect for you will increase. The next thing is true chemistry. This is the one that gets really toxic. When you feel strong chemistry with someone, your emotions are going to be engaged and it's going to be really easy to fall in love with them and vice versa. So chemistry is something that it's either there or it's not. You can't replicate chemistry. You cannot create chemistry out of nothing. That's just not. Okay? Unless you guys are the last humans on planet Earth and we live in the planet of the apes and me and you are the only Homo sapiens, okay, maybe we'll have chemistry. But it's very hard to create chemistry because it's really a biological thing that we have no control over. All right, guys, we're going to have a brief intermission so that I can tell you guys about our new bundle that we're doing where you guys can purchase all of my courses and get it at a discount. So this bundle is pretty much the bundle where you could just buy all of my courses. You could buy Nice Guy, which is a training course on how to come across more assertive, how to come across more confident, how to not give off nice guy vibes. You guys can get access to Dark Game, which is my full dating course on how to meet women in different scenarios, how to attract women, how to make sure you don't come across as creepy, and essentially how to act like a man and not act like a doofus, to be quite honest with you. And you get all of these bonuses, which is the bonuses of Dark Game, the bonuses of Practical Mastery, which is about how to master a skill, Social Mastery, which is how to master your social life, and the Laws of Human Nature, which is a book club videos that I had dissecting Robert Greene's book. All of this is naturally at around naturally is at $346, but you guys can purchase this bundle and get it at what's the price again? Get it at 238 pretty much. So you guys can purchase it right now. It's a money back 30-day money back guarantee. It's a good way to, rather than just buying them individually and paying extra, you guys can just purchase everything at a discount price. Now, the only thing I don't like is the fact that I'm giving you a lot of information at the same time. That makes me kind of scared, because a lot of times people don't do the things that I teach when you get too much information. But I've gotten too many requests to do this, so I'm just satisfying you guys. Purchase it right now by clicking on the description down below where it says purchase the bundle. All right, let's continue with the video. The next thing that creates this engagement of emotions is triangulation. This is toxic, people. People can deal with the fact that some people are taller than them, maybe funnier. But the one thing that people cannot stand is the fact that somebody is more attractive than somebody else. It's the fact that somebody has more appeal to the opposite sex. That is a truth that most people just cannot deal with, right? And so this triangulation is one of the most toxic forms of causing and engaging people's emotions, because it brings out the worst in people. But this is a weakness that every human has, especially if you have siblings. We all compete for the attention of our parents. Every human has the weakness of being vulnerable when somebody compares you to somebody else. Everyone is susceptible to that type of manipulation. Anytime you feel like you competed for somebody's affection, you're gonna get more emotionally engaged in that moment, because it's competition. Competition makes people engage more emotionally. When I'm playing basketball and nobody has next, like for example, nobody's waiting to take your place if you lose, the games are not intense. As soon as you see Tyrone and his crew say, "Hey man, I got next," all of a sudden, I swear to God, everyone starts playing better. And God forbid if you bring Melissa, the white girl, into the game to watch us play. All of a sudden, people are going to start being Michael Jordan. All of a sudden, people are going to start doing windmill dunks, like fucking spinner Roonies, fucking sham gods. Like, competition. Another observer makes the dynamic more emotionally intense. So how do you create that? Well, the non-toxic way is for you to, let me see, I'm trying to think of the non-toxic way. Okay, let's start with the toxic way. And this is, I just don't recommend this, because you might revive an evil spirit in that person. Is indirectly letting them know that you have an ex, obviously, and that you love the ex, and that you never loved anyone else as much before. People are gonna take that as a challenge. Especially if you never tell them you love them. They're going to say, why don't you... The thoughts that are going to dominate their minds is, why don't you love me? You love them. Why can't you love me? Right? That's one thing. Like letting them know that you love someone and then not saying I love you to them. That does hurt people. It does. The next one is literally dating somebody that looks the complete opposite of your ex. That's one thing. If you date Tyrone, the personal trainer, date Bob, the programmer, and vice versa. You know, and if the person knows that your ex looks the complete opposite of you, it definitely creates inner competition. And God forbid if you tell him he had a big dick, or you tell her that she had some big old titties and the girl has a small chest. Like that will get toxic. That's gonna get toxic. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay. We want to go with things that are not that sexually explicit. All right. Other things that you could do to create this triangulation is if you dated a rich guy, now you're dating a normal guy, letting them know the status of your ex. You know, if you dated a super famous girl and you're dating a normal girl, letting them know the status of your ex. I mean, I know it sounds simple, but the triangulation does do that. And the most toxic one is staying friends with your ex. People don't. I hate when people do that. Like, and for some reason, people who stay friends with their ex, as long as they don't have children, if they have children, you could. But if they don't have children, why the hell are you guys being buddy buddy? I don't give a fuck if this is a mature relationship. Anyways, triangulation does that. Other ways that you could triangulate is by literally having friends of the opposite sex. Just the presence of the opposite sex. Literally, just like you could have me as your friend and just be there and just breathe and not move, and I'll be a threat to your ex. Like, it's just that simple. Just the presence of the opposite sex does that. But as long as you're not obvious about it. For example, the last girl that I was dating did that shit, and it worked on me for like a week or two until I saw the bullshit where she said her ex wanted to move in. He was broke, he was poor, and he needs a place for a week, and she felt bad because he was begging, and they've known each other for years. And me and that girl weren't in a relationship, but we were talking. But I didn't have the right to tell her what to do. You know what I'm saying? Because we were just talking. But I was like, look, man, whatever. Long story short, she said the ex would take her phone and block me, and he wouldn't let her unblock me. And so I thought that she couldn't control it. But then I realized that he was going to be there for a week, but then it started extending to 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I would tell her, why don't you kick him out? And she's like, oh, because he just doesn't leave. And then the only way he left was because she was actually going to Colombia, and he had no other choice because she had to leave. And I'm like, if you would have not have left to Colombia, he still would have been there. She's like, maybe. And I'm like, okay, this bitch is crazy. And then she was like, well, I'm trying to heal. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm done with this. And I walked away. I was like, you're bullshitting me. But I could promise you, the competition between me and him, psychologically, it definitely made me compete more for her. Right? But thank God I've grown as a person. And I didn't take that personal, and I didn't take that as a challenge. But the truth is that people's self-esteem is lower than you think, and they do fall for these tricks. Like, people's self-esteem is not as high as you think people. The next one is they represent a personal or cultural archetype. Right? They look like Prince, for example. And all of a sudden, because you look like Prince and I like Prince, their emotions get more engaged. Maybe you look like my dad or behave like my dad. Or you behave like my mom and look like my mom. Or maybe you look like the ex that dumped me. And now this is my other chance to redeem myself. And this actually happened to me. Right? I was dating this girl. Long story short, she dumped me. And I was really in love with her. And then I dated another girl. And she didn't look like her. But then one day she came over and I was drunk. And she just let me lay on her lap. And I looked up. And from that angle, she looked like her. I was like, holy fuck. That's fucking Gaia. That was her name. Gaia is a beautiful name, though. I'm like, that's fucking Gaia. And then all of a sudden I fell in love with her. I stopped loving Gaia. I fell in love with her. And it wasn't because of her. It was because of their projection. She represented somebody in my past. Right? And you kind of end up going back with them. You're staying with them because they look like the ex, or they remind you of the ex. And so you could just not heal and just project those emotions onto them. You know, those relationships never work out, by the way. But, or maybe you represent the bad boy look in America, for example. Or maybe you look like a Korean pop star singer, like the androgynous look. And then all of a sudden, any girl that likes those, that fall in love with one of those singers, they meet you, and all of a sudden they fall in love with you, right? The projections, personal projections. Dad, how his or her dad was, and then cultural projection. Oh my God, you look like Prince. Let me go out with you. Or oh my God, you look like Lenny Kravitz. With me, I noticed that women who are into black guys, or women who like Lenny Kravitz, or women who like spiritual guys, or women who kind of like Prince. I don't know why that one. Or women who like XXXTentacion, or they usually go for me because I just look like them. So you engage their emotions by affecting a projection. The next one is conflict and resolution. This is pretty much what makeup sex is, right? People tend to fall in love during situations of conflict, right? So it could be that maybe you guys got into a fight and made up, or maybe you guys got mad at each other because maybe one person was late on the date, and you got really mad at the person, and then they really apologize, and then they say, you know what? I know we're fighting right now, but how about this? Let's start all over again. Let's try this again. Let me make it up to you. And you guys meet. But because you guys fought, but because you guys had some conflict, all of a sudden you meet again, and it feels like you know them, even though it's the first date. There's something about conflict that brings people together. The United States, the moments when it's most people are proud to be Americans the most is during conflict. Countries at war become more united. Countries at peace get a little bit more divided. Conflict and pain, and even those toxic relationships, the reason why they're so addictive is because conflict creates an emotional and physical addiction to the other person. If you're able to get me mad, that means I really like you. If you're able to make me feel negative emotions, it means you're also able to make me feel positive emotions, like any other drug. Conflict does that. So that's why it's okay. That's why I encourage you guys to be confrontational when somebody's being disrespectful, even if it's your lover. Because confronting people who, especially your ex, the people who you're dating who are being disrespectful, what that does is that it actually makes them, you actually create the type of conflict that when you tell them the issue and they try to work it out, the reconciliation brings you guys closer together. And the last one, it's sympathy. Sympathy and empathy. This one is pretty big. You could be dating someone and they look good. You like the way they are, but for some reason you just don't feel that chemistry. How do you do that? Well, I got something for you. Sympathy. When you find somebody attractive and then you mix the feeling of sympathy, a lot of the times it feels like you're in love. That desire to help someone who you feel like is in need and feels like they're helpless creates warm, fuzzy feelings inside of you. It really does, man. And sometimes that makes people actually fall in love for that person. And that's why people play the victim. Because playing the victim works. Playing the victim elicits sympathy. And if this person finds you attractive, you guys have a lot in common, that could potentially, like sugar and spice and everything nice, that could be the spice or the sugar to this whole concoction to create the Powerpuff Girls. Sympathy, like I remember this one girl whose cat died. I hate dating girls with pets, man. There's always that moment where you gotta be the comforter. Anyways, her cat died, which I fucking hated, but you know. Anyways, I liked it, but I didn't like her that much. No, I liked it, but not like that. You know what I'm saying? But she just cried on my lap. She just started crying. Like, she just felt so bad, and I'm a nice person, and I had never seen somebody cry so hard like that. And I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, man." I first of all, I didn't know what to say. I was like, okay, like I'm kind of happy that motherfucker's gone. He peed on me one time, but you know, she was crying, and I just felt bad. And she got out. She was like, "Thank you." And I remember the feeling. I just felt so bad for her that she went through that. Like, I really felt bad for her, and I wanted her to be happy. I gave her a gift, took her out to dinner. She was smiling, and I was happy that she was smiling. Think about that. What the fuck do you think is going on in my brain? I'm falling in love with this person. That's what's going on. That's conflict for you. Women, there's something about a woman who looks sad and needs help that as a guy, I want to help. And it engages your emotions. And if you have the right circumstances, it could potentially make somebody fall in love. And that's how you engage their emotions. Honestly, there's just so many ways to engage people's emotions. I've been just having some crazy revelations. It sounds so cultish. I've had revelations, but I've just had so many things about human nature that just have been illuminated to me the past week that my mind has been kind of blown. I'm not even gonna lie, people. I'm not even gonna lie, even from me. And especially because I was reading a book, the book, The Art of Seduction, in my Robert Greene book club, and I was reading the chapter about confusing reality and fantasy, and it just blows your mind. It helps you, it shows you why some people tend to follow cults, tend to believe crazy shit in a way that makes sense, so that the next time you see somebody following a dumbass cult leader, you don't be like, why are you following them? You're gonna be like, okay, I get it. So yeah, it's, you guys can join the Robert Greene book club by being a Robert Greene book club member by clicking on the description down below. There you can learn a lot of these strategies about how to engage in people's emotions. But generally speaking, this is something that should happen naturally in your relationships. You don't have to manufacture this. You could do these strategies to maintain a relationship. Don't do these strategies to make somebody love you. These strategies are better used once they love you. You could just sprinkle a little bit of it, and it has a really beautiful and powerful effect. When I describe things, it sounds evil, because it's just that's my language. That's the way I describe things. But the truth is, this happens a lot in healthy relationships. So you don't have to be Satan to apply this in your life. All right, you could also be the Buddha. You could be Jesus. Heck, Jesus did that. Jesus had 12 disciples. You don't think they competed for him? You know what I'm saying? Like what? He had 12 disciples. That does work.